Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Today, we're joined by another Profit First professional to share her journey with Profit First. Aimee LaLiberte is a trusted profitability advisor to 6- and 7-figure business owners who are tired of being behind in their books and are ready to uncover blind spots, course correct, and ultimately get more profitable. Let's meet Aimee. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Aimee LaLiberte. It's great to have you join us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Can you share with the audience a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Well, as you know, my name is Aimee LaLiberte, and my digital space is over at myvirtualcfo.co. And what I do is I help business owners manage their businesses through bookkeeping services, CFO services, and also implementation of Profit First. And then I layer right on top of that some coaching and mindset to help them understand how they make decisions and how we can create any financial goal they desire to set, create, and surpass.
And they have to set a goal, don't they?
I believe they do, because it's, I always distill it down to, let's say that you want to travel somewhere. If you just say, hey, I'm going to go somewhere, you could go anywhere. But if you say, I want to travel to New York City, then it becomes very clearly defined, and then there's a pathway through there. So instead of just roaming aimlessly, trying to figure out your path, just set a marker and know that there's going to be plot twists and pivots along the way, but at least you're setting yourself at a destination.
And then it becomes much easier to go that direction because you're not thinking about all these other choices, which is the problem with most entrepreneurs. Shiny object syndrome. And when we have clarity on what we want, it becomes very easy to say, is this or is this not the direction I want it to go? And does this help me to achieve that?
No, absolutely. And I think the part that I often see my clients get caught up in is that when they decide to make a goal. So let's just say they make a financial goal of, I want to create $2 million in revenue this year in my business. What happens is that they get very caught up in the how, and they start running all of these numbers to try to figure out how they're going to do it, instead of really starting to focus on what it is that they're going to become to be the creator of someone of $2 million. And there's a great difference between those two areas. It's not to say that the how doesn't matter, but the how is less important than the actual stepping into the person that is the creator of that goal. Does that make sense?
It does. Someone who runs a $200,000 business is very different than someone who runs a $2 million business. And so you have to become the person who can run a $2 million business.
Absolutely. Because someone that's running a $2 million business, you have to add team. And if you're not someone who is familiar with how to create a team, how to manage a team, how to find people to be on your team, that's something that you have to put forth time in. And so I always like to break it down into goal setting into like 3 different criteria. There's the capacity, there's the inclination, and there's the readiness. And for you to create the goal, those 3 items need to be calibrated in such a manner. So with capacity, $2 million is your goal. And let's say currently right now you're doing a $200,000 in annual revenue. Right now, your capacity is $200,000. That doesn't mean that the $2 million is outside of your reach, but between the 200,000 and the 2 million, there's a gap there's a bridge that needs to be built. So just the acknowledgement of that is fine. In terms of the inclination is like, how inclined are you? Like, what is your deep rooted desire? And what is your like why of that, right? So why are you doing this? What are you looking to achieve? What are you looking to accomplish? And there's not a right or wrong answer to it. It's just, what is your inclination to meet that, to build that bridge into that capacity of 2 million? And then the readiness is what I was just talking about before with like, how ready are you to create that goal? If you don't have a single team member in place and you want to scale to 2 million, your readiness is going to look very different. It may not be a readiness factor that could happen in 12 months. I'm not saying it's impossible, because anything's possible, but it's just really a realistic approach to any goal.
10x in 12 months is a serious serious effort. And that's basically what, like when I have my initial calls with clients, we spend 2 hours getting to understand who they are as people and what their goals are and what they want and where their strengths and struggles are, and challenging why they want what they want. Sometimes you find that it's not necessarily what they thought they want. And we'll figure it out over time. So how did you come to learn about Profit First?
So my story with Profit First goes back quite a long time ago. So I met Mike Michalowicz back in, I'm going to say it might have been 2008, when the toilet paper entrepreneur had just come out. And so I was at a conference. He was a speaker there. We got into a conversation, and he just was such a fun person. He was just somebody I always followed in terms of like, did he have any new books that came out? So then Profit First came out. I obviously bought it. I read it. And at that point, I hadn't started my own practice. So it was something that I read, and I thought, this is fantastic. This is so smart. And then I started my practice, and I just love the simplicity of what Profit First stands for, and just thought, okay, I have to be part of this community and do the certification and all of that. And then, the rest is history.
You've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah, cool. It is really cool. And what I love about it is that it's so applicable to any business. So I sometimes get people who are just starting out in business, and they don't think that Profit First is right for them. And it's like, well, of course, it's always right for you. And if anything, if you're just starting out, it's like the best time to, because there's no habits that we have to course correct in like the continuation when you do the assessment and then you do the rollout. If we just start from day one with the allocated percentages, then you're golden. Like, you are living in those recommended percentages that we as Profit First professionals recommend.
That is so true. A lot of people always say, oh, I'll do it when, instead of just doing it. And I think the other people struggle with is the fact that it is so simple. They're like, well, simple can't work. And I'm like, yeah, simple works. Let's just go do it.
Well, and I completely agree. And I was just talking about this the other day, and I think that people, when it comes to our brain, there's these thoughts of like, our brain is so complex. And yes, there's all different parts of our brains that have all these different functions, but really our mind, it's really simple. Its core design is to keep us safe. And so Profit First is that same thing. A profit first is just to keep you in a maximized profitability for your business. And then if you use it personally, then for you personally, but it provides like a really simple roadmap for you just to make easy decisions, to decide whether or not something you want to do or not do based on what you have available to you in terms of your money, currency, resources.
And you have clarity on that in the moment, not waiting for reports that are coming months later from your accountant. So since we're talking a little bit about mindset and money, I know one of the things you like to talk about is the importance of separating your self-worth from your bottom line. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think at any point in our lives, whether you are someone who's like a fully realized, doing a self-coaching practice and do meditation, at some point there was a disruption of your confidence in your worth. And I think what happens is that, my whole philosophy is that we're born into this world confident. We're born into this world worthy, right? And somewhere along the way, we have these circumstances, these life experiences that happen that really make our brains forget that we are confident, we're always confident, and we're always worthy. And what I see so often happen with business owners is that there's so much of their business and what they create and produce for themselves in terms of like the revenue in the business, that it's tied up into their worth, that it means that it has something to do with who they are inherently as a person. And that's just not the case. If you're always worthy, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account, how much money you don't have in the bank account, how many clients you serve or not, or where you are. It has nothing to do with you and your inherent worth, because your worth is always intact. Does that make sense?
It does. You have to kind of separate both of those. And I think it creates that confidence issue, right? And that's really what it comes down to. And as business owners, we have ups and downs. That's just the reality of business. And you've got to have the mental fortitude to handle that.
Absolutely. If you look at this past year, business owners have definitely had to up their practice of mindset just to stay in the zone and to do all the things that we take on as business owners. So, when last year when the pandemic, first started off, I had clients who had to make the decision to furlough their staff and their employees because they were closed. They weren't producing revenue. It was a very hard decision for them to make, but it was the right decision for them to make for the future of their business. And it really is it's not about them as much as it's about the fact that like you're running a business, there is a number and there's income that comes in. If you're implementing profit first, you're deploying it to those avenues. If you don't have the money to pay for it because you don't have the income coming in, that's not about you. And that's not about you as a person. It's not about you in any regard. It's just making a business decision and moving forward with that in a way that's like from a place of love and not from any other place. And I think a lot of my clients, at least, came to that realization, was that the decisions that they had to make were not easy decisions, but they were decisions that in order to bring those employees back, they had to make in that moment.
And it was tough. And the problem was when all of that was going on, the rules were changing every hour. Yeah. So it was a little crazy time. Am I supposed to do this, not do this? And a lot of it was counterintuitive. You want me to keep my employees on, but my business is closed. And the forgiveness rules weren't clear. It was just crazy times. But those people who took action and started going towards some sort of goal were able to pivot their way through it.
Yeah. And I think like the thing is that there's this whole, what I think is fascinating is this whole notion of right and wrong, good and bad. And, there's a there's people who maybe decided they weren't going to take PPP money, or they weren't going to do any sort of government program because the rules weren't spelled out clearly, and that just wasn't something they didn't want to take something on unless they had all of their questions answered. And that's totally fine. If you like your reasons for doing it, then there's nothing wrong with that, right? Versus people who took the PPP money who maybe didn't have everything spelled out, because let's be honest, there was a majority of people that signed promissory notes knowing that the rules were going to change, just because it was so reactionary that there wasn't proactive. It was like, okay, we'll deal with that later. And that there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just that, like, owning your decisions and sitting in the power and the confidence that you have your own back is what that was really about. And I feel like that's what I wanted my clients to know, is that you just need to make the decision that's best for you, that's best for your business, and that you can put your head on the pillow at night feeling like I have my own back.
And that is a big part of it. And that's why it's also nice to have extra people on your team to help you run through those ideas and make sure that you are thinking through everything clearly. One of the things that I love about Profit First, and I'm guessing that's what you're mentioning in this other point that I've seen you make, is the importance of choosing your clients instead of letting them simply choose you. It is so powerful when you have the ability to fire clients and to say no to clients. It was a core principle when I started my business. I was like, I'm not working with people I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah,
no, absolutely. So I think when you first start out in business, it's really about, like, you want to generate sales, and perhaps you might have an understanding of what your offer is and what you want to do and how you want to serve. But maybe the person that is the receiver of your services and of your wisdom may need some tinkering. And I think as time goes on, even if, for me at least, I've been pretty good about dialing in on it now, but I'm like 4 years into my business at this point. So I think that, like, I've had enough experience to know what's going to work and what's not going to work. But ultimately, it's really about, if you don't feel like you can hold space and support that client where they are, even if you believe that you can get them to where they want to be, it will never provide you with the meaningful impact that you want to have with a client who you would feel completely different with. And again, I think one of the things that's so interesting is there's nothing, I think that, I don't know, I'm sure there's somebody out there that says something like, you should take every client. And I just don't agree with that, because I think you show up, if you feel that you're showing up and you're like, oh my gosh, you have all this drama around this client and how hard they are to work with, how demanding they are, how they never seem satisfied, or you're not going to show up in the way that you would show up to someone who you feel really excited and light up to serve. And just being honest with yourself and not making it about the money that you would receive in exchange, because really what money really is an exchange of energy. And if you feel like you can't give, like, your utmost energy to a client, then you shouldn't be taking their money. Because there's somebody out there, there's another client out there who is a better match for you. And there's somebody out there for that prospective client that's going to be able to serve them at the level that they need to be served.
And that's the other thing, because we're working so closely with these people, and we're working in an area that becomes very emotional, especially when it's tied to money, they also need to jive with you. They need to make sure that they're a good fit and you're a good fit for them. And that's why I have other Profit First professionals on the podcast. It's like, I want to help you make sure you thrive and survive. And if you're not connecting with me, then maybe I'll share with you somebody else that you can connect with who's more in line with your sync. And I don't expect everyone to love me. I get that, You have to find the person that works best for you. And that's why I try to get more opportunities to have people say, which one of these people is going to help you? Which one do you connect with the best? And go find them and work with them.
Well, yeah, I completely agree. And I think the other thing too that's really important to note is to honestly understand and be really clear on how you show up with like your relationship with money. Meaning that for me, I'm someone who tends to be more of an accumulator type archetype. So I like to like bring in a lot of money and hold it. And it's not to say that I couldn't work with someone that likes to spend a lot of money, but I understand from the get-go someone who likes to keep very narrow margins might not be the best person for me, not because there's anything wrong with their business model. It's just that I like to keep a little bit more in a vault than they probably are going. They're going to see that money and they're going to have thoughts of, I want to spend that money. Why are you keeping that there? Whereas for me, any of my clients that had these vaults of money last year, we were able to do a pretty good job weathering the storm when everything got shut down. So it's again, like there's nothing wrong with like your thoughts about it and how you want to, but you want to make sure that someone that you're working with on the finance side of your business has a perspective that is similar to yours or one that you are open to and resonates with, because that's really going to show up in your engagement together.
And so it's funny because I think the people who should best work with me are the people who are opposite me, because I create that friction that forces them to think twice before they take action. In the sense that I'm kind of I'm causing them to be a little bit more cautious, I guess, because most of them spend like crazy. They don't think twice. Having somebody go, wait a minute, how is this all going to work out? Let's put the brakes on this before we hit the gas is nice. But yeah, everyone's got to find somebody that matches with their style and that they're willing to listen to.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too is sort of like what's important. So like one of the items of feedback that I heard from a client the other day was, they said, what I like so much about working with you, Aimee, is that when we have these conversations, I know like you have like this owner's advocate, like you're wearing that hat and you're always advocating for the owner. And so as the owner, like this person is the owner of the business. He says, you know, I want to do these things and I want to grow the business. And I love that you always bring it back to, okay, how is this going to impact you as the owner? And again, I think it's really about like what people's like where their priorities are, not in terms of like life priorities, but like how they see the business from the lens of like, how do you see it from an owner's perspective, from an employer perspective, from a tax perspective? Because I think if those are the things that can align, or things that you know that you're within that realm, I think you're going to get a much meaningful experience and you're going to create a greater transformation. I'm not opposed to working with someone that's the complete opposite of me, but there has to be a lot of space being held for that person, because where you want them to be and where they want to be are very different. And there's a lot of work that has to come to bridge into the middle there.
That is so true. So you just mentioned taxes. I recently did an episode that you should pay more taxes. What are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, if you're paying more taxes, it means that you have greater profit in your business. And so my whole thought on taxes is that it's an indicator on it's one of the indicators on the health of your business. I know business owners don't want to hear this. They get very upset when they have to pay more taxes than what they quote unquote they need to pay. But ultimately, what you pay in taxes is an indicator. Now, the thing I do want to mention is that how much you pay in taxes, if you're maximizing all of the different incentives that you're able to, whether it's like maxing out the retirement and doing all of the things that you need to do and working with someone who is able to really advocate for you in terms of what is the best tax strategy for you, and you're still paying taxes, that's not a problem. That's just an indication of that you have created and are running a very sound, financially healthy business. And that's great. One of the other things that I also always tell clients that have a lot of thoughts around the taxes is that what I do is when I go and pay my taxes, my quarterly taxes, I always go on to the the National HA. I'm totally spacing on it. But anyways, I go on to the health department's website and there is a grant for NEH. I think it's NEH. But anyways, I go on there and I start to look at the research for what they are doing and what is the research that they're funding in terms of the health space. And what I like to do is I tell myself, oh, my tax money just went and funded this doctor's research. And it's like this whole like, oh yeah, I'm making a difference in here and I'm doing my part. And I think that just changes the tone of paying taxes as if it's if it's negative, because it's not. It's really about like the greater whole.
And taxes, I say, are a necessary evil. And as you said, if you're profitable, well, you have to pay taxes. It's a small fine to pay for great success. Do you have any profit first success stories that come to mind?
Yeah, no, I mean, I have quite a few. So I have this one client who we started working in 2019, and we got everything started. And it was interesting because at the end of this year, at the end of 2020, we were just making sure everything was wrapped up and tied up. And one of the things that he said was, this is just such an unusual experience for me because in all the years that I've been running my business, I've never been able to accumulate this much for all of these different categories, for tax and for profit. And it was almost this moment of like, I feel like I have finally got it. I finally feel like I've got everything in place. And it's the best thing to hear from that, because it's, again, we talked earlier about how profit first, it's like the implementation is so simple. And yet, there's this resistance to actually going ahead and doing it. But when you can have the benefit of that, when you turn around and if you're someone who has amassed debt and is looking to pay it off and you're able to implement something like profit first and you're able to really start attacking that debt. I remember this one client, we had paid off a credit card in the first year of the implementation. And he was like, I never thought that was possible. And I'm like, of course it's possible. Like, it's so easy, right? So yeah, there's so many stories of that. And just being able to have them go in and feel a great sense of security by, like, again, if they want to just look at their check, their bank balances, they're able to feel this like clarity around it, even though they don't have like the full picture, they can see the balances, and that's enough for them in order to like go on with their day.
And that's very true. When you have those vault accounts and you have the cash in the bank, you sleep better at night. You have the ability to, as we talked about, get rid of problem clients. And when tax time comes, you can just stroke a check because the money is there and it's already been allocated to taxes. And so it creates such peace and it makes your business a lot more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
If people would like to connect with you, learn more about your services and find out more about you, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I am on Instagram at myvirtualcfo, website myvirtualcfo.co. And if you go onto my website, you will see a link for a Facebook group that I have, a free Facebook group called Confident Money Matters. And I host weekly live shows in the group, and we are all there to help make your financial goals reality and to create those with confidence.
That is awesome. And I will put those links in the show notes to make it easy for people to find you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
I love the Profit First family. We all get along and support each other. Sometimes we realize we're not a good fit for a particular business owner, and we pass the lead on to each other. When you are profitable, it's no longer a scarcity mindset. It's abundance, and we can all grow and prosper together. I'm thrilled to be able to do that. If you need help, connect with either of us. Remember, you don't need more resources, you need to be more resourceful. We focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your Chief Profitability Officer. Because you have your zone of genius and want to spend your time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients, so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit conversation to see if I'm the right person to support you and how I can help you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.